Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Tyrone back with Tech Life, and I pulled up this Root Metrics national score. Once again, I saw that Sneed made a response video. So I wanted to make one final video discussing more my point, and that'll be it. So I know and I understand very well that this testing, it has its variables. It's different for every area. And I know some of you have your own thoughts and opinions on your area and what you're experiencing versus what Root Metrics may have scored for the carriers in your market. What I will say, and I know this can be looked at from several different perspectives. You could tell me and say, hey, if somebody scores a 100 and the next time around they only score a 95, they still technically get an A, right? So I get it. I understand it. But what I will say, for one, I will be very honest. T-Mobile regressed. I don't care what anybody says. T-Mobile had 48 number ones. Most of them were ties in the first half of 24. In the second half, they only had 22. So you could tell me, well, that may mean that the other carriers are just getting better. Regardless, T-Mobile didn't do enough to get above 48. I was expecting to see them get to maybe 55, 60. They went from 48 down to 22. And at the state level, they went from 7 number one ties down to 2. So yes, you could make the argument, well, the Verizon and AT&T just got better. T-Mobile stayed the same. I mean, you could take that argument however you want it. But if I see that big of a drop, I have to say that it's regressing. So, and then some have said, well, you can make the argument that Verizon went from number 1 to number 2, so they kind of went backwards. I mean, that's kind of the same thing. They scored less, right? AT&T kind of remained flat. They dropped a few points, and Verizon went from number 1 to number 2. But T-Mobile, in my view, they dropped the most. They dropped significantly. Not only on the overall national score, but just do a comparison, right? Just do a comparison from the first half and the second half. T-Mobile did significantly less in the metros, where they are expected to be the strongest. That's their whole spiel for this entire Un-carrier, that they invested enough in the metros. They're growing there, the top 100 markets, and they dropped significantly. Now, is it calling again? What is it? We don't know. We can speculate. We can talk. But they dropped big time. They dropped the ball. And that's what that Root Metrics score shows. Now, we're still waiting for the full report, and we'll look at the full report. Maybe Root Metrics has an explanation in there. But T-Mobile dropped the most. AT&T actually increased their metro wins again. And Verizon, I mean, they've just been strong. They're just very, very, very strong in the metros. I've seen some reports that aren't public, and the task failure rate are significantly higher on AT&T and T-Mobile than they are on Verizon. Significantly. In most cases, it's a 0. Verizon has very little task failure rates. So, take that and do with that information as you will. But what I will say, to the response, AT&T and Verizon, you can, like I said, you can say they went from a 100 to a 96. They still scored an A. And I guess you can technically say that for T-Mobile too. But in my book, when you go from number 1 in 48 metros out of what is it, 125, maybe a little less now, they made some adjustments, and you go down to 22, your competition is increasing. They're heating up the investment. You're not keeping up. So you're dropping back. You're dropping back significantly. And maybe I didn't explain that correctly in the first video, but if you drop by 0.2, 0.3, it's not a big deal. AT&T and Verizon, they're technically trading close back and forth. Verizon was number one. Now it's AT&T. Next half, it might be Verizon again. But T-Mobile, they dropped off. I got to be honest, right? We're talking about objectivity. I'm looking at the numbers. T-Mobile dropped off. Now I don't think that will affect T-Mobile. I still think they get their growth, they get their customers. But again, there's a reason that churn is 0.92%, right? It could be several factors, several reasons, but T-Mobile had the highest churn. And then you look at Root Metrics and T-Mobile dropped off big time. So they fell to third place in my market. You know what I mean? They were number two. AT&T surpassed them within like 6 months. So there's got to be something there that we're not looking at. Now, could Root Metrics be at fault? People have told me they might have device issues. I mean, the blame can be passed around, but that's what the numbers show. So I wanted to point that out and make this video for that reason. T-Mobile has work to do. They dropped the ball, in my opinion. If I look at improvement and you had 48 number ones and then you go down to 22, I think there's some issues there. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear from you guys. Do you guys mind them dropping some points? Do you guys care at all? Let us know in the comments. Like, share, subscribe if you're new. Follow my social media outlets. This is Tyrone with Tech Live. See y'all in the next one. Peace.